What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today
is your nightmare.
Because if you want to hear this monster amplifier, then you have to listen to me
play guitar.
Today, we are gonna check out an update to Driftwood's fan favorite high gain amplifier. This is the Purple Nightmare Signature. Let's do it! Alright guys, hope you're doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle, and welcome to Belligerent Studios. What I do here is I take all sorts of awesome high gain related guitar equipment, I record it with a simple setup, and I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. So if you're into East Ender thrash riffs, dropsy hardcore riffs, and dudes that are aging terribly, you're in the right place. Consider hitting the like button and subscribing on your way out so you don't miss any more of my stuff. Thanks! Alright, so did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that intro tone? That was a pretty sick tone, right? Well, it was 100% this amp and nothing else, including the noise gate. This is the Driftwood Purple Nightmare Signature Amplifier, and boy am I happy to be able to share it with you guys for a number of reasons. Before we get any further into any of this though, you guys should know this is a sponsored video. Driftwood have sent me, they have loaned me this amplifier. They are paying me to share this with you guys here on the channel. So, in the sake of transparency, I wanted you guys to be aware of that. Feel free to take everything that I have to say with a massive grain of salt. You're more than fair to do so, but just know, I'm gonna give you my honest thoughts and opinions as I always do. Keep that in mind. I was trying to go for like car salesman-y there, but I just suck at everything. So, if you guys have been hanging around my channel for a while, you will know that, I didn't have a very good start with the Driftwood line of amplifiers. I had actually purchased a used Purple Nightmare from somebody who actually watched the channel, and I had it for a few months, and I just tried and tried and tried to like it, and I just couldn't. Like, I couldn't balance the low end, couldn't balance the top end. The mids just weren't quite where I liked them. The amp just never sounded right to my ears, but a lot of you guys said, dude, like, you need to try another one, because almost everybody who has played through or owned one of these Driftwood Purple Nightmare amplifiers seems to absolutely love it. So I'm like, okay, I will definitely try another one if the opportunity comes. Luckily for me, I have a friend who is not as bad of a gear hoarder as I am, but he sure does like to try a lot of amps, and that is Jason Howell. So Jason was nice enough to loan me the Darkest Nightmare, and the Darkest Nightmare is basically just the single high gain channel from the Purple Nightmare, and dude, I liked that amp so much more, so much more. And Merrick was nice enough to actually work with me, reach out to me, talk to me about his amps and stuff. And for, you know, somebody, me being the person that basically was like, oh, this Driftwood is not at all what people are cracking it up to be, he was still willing to work with me. So I thought that that was super commendable, and we've had a great working relationship ever since. I actually reached out to him for this amplifier because he had told me a long while back, that he was gonna be updating the Purple Nightmare and basically kind of changing some of the things that I personally wasn't jiving with on the original amplifier, and that amp actually did take shape in the signature version of the Purple Nightmare. So, what is different on the signature version? First and foremost, the thing that everybody will note right away, this power section has EL34 power tubes, but Merrick also went in and actually changed some of the circuit. A lot of builders, especially in the boutique space, really know what they're doing when it comes to designing a power section around a specific tube, because there are going to be differences. So those differences make for different sonic characters. That took me way too long to explain, and I probably got it wrong anyways. So other than the power section differences, the gain channel has been slightly revoiced, basically to accentuate the changes of the power section even more. And I can tell you honestly, It is very, very noticeable. I really, really like what Merrick has done with this amplifier. It's definitely pushed the Driftwood Purple Nightmare more into my wheelhouse of amps that I would definitely like to own. So Merrick, why don't we do something about one of those? But there has been another added feature, and that is the three-way bright switch over here. Think of this very, very similar to the three-way bright switch on a Jose amplifier. In the middle, it's off. In the top and the bottom settings, it gives you different brightness, different attack on the front end of the amp, and the more you turn the gain up, the less you will notice that. But if you're going for lower gain tones and you want to kind of try to fine tune the string or the pick attack with this amp, you can do that via the bright switch, so that's a really nice addition as well. And that also explains a little bit of the noise that I was getting because we were using the internal tube screamer. This amp is pretty famous for having an internal tube screamer built into it with the controls right on the front. And usually with those bright switches on a Jose style amp, you do get some noise if you boost said amp with the bright switch engaged. But that is the other big change in this version of the amplifier. But like I said, we still have the built-in tube screamer. We've got a noise gate on the back of the amp. I can't remember if the original had a noise gate. This one does. Again, I was using it in the intro of this video and it was dead silent when I wasn't playing. It seemed very accurate, so it's a really, really nice touch. On the back, the amp also features external bias points. It features a dedicated tuner out, which is kind of a cool thing with its own dedicated 9-volt power supply. And then finally, we have the full and the quiet power amp settings. This thing has a full 100-watt tube power amp, but if you're trying to play at night, I believe it's actually called night mode, you can switch it over to night mode and that'll give you, I think it's like a 2-watt solid state power amp built into this thing. Like, this amp was originally really, really well thought out and all of that still remains. All the good stuff is still here. So we are gonna check out this amp with multiple guitars, multiple different pickups, multiple tunings, and a couple of different overdrives just to see how it reacts. And if you guys find that you're really liking how this amplifier sounds, I actually made a quad cortex capture pack of the amp, 15 different captures, 15 different tones, $15 different. You guys can grab those over on my Patreon. The link to my Patreon is in the description of every single video, and you guys purchasing those capture packs go a long way. So make sure to go over to Patreon and follow me if you guys want to be notified about new capture packs when they become available. And with all the shilling out of the way, it's time to jump into the tones. For that intro clip, I was using my Epiphone Les Paul Custom 1979 Adam Jones with the Seymour Duncan distortion in the bridge of the guitar. We were going through my 1999 Mesa traditional 4x12 cab that I use in every amp playthrough video. So you can compare this amp with any other amp that I've done a full demo of. And to add to that, we are miking this cab, the stock vintage 30s, with an SM57, no post-processing on any of the tones that you guys are hearing. And as I said at the beginning, everything that you guys heard was being produced within this amp and no outboard pedals whatsoever. And that sounded like this. So as you guys can see, I have the bass almost at 0 on this. This amp has an absurd amount of low end. I've also got the bright switch in the down position. If I flip it up to the middle, that actually, even with the gain turned up fairly high, that mellowed out the string attack or the pick attack quite a bit and smoothed the tone out. So we might as well check out the third position while we're at it. Man, I really like it in the bottom setting the most because it is the tightest in the low end. It is having a noticeable effect on the low end. Sounds great, but again, that was with the built-in tube screamer engaged. Let's go ahead and shut that off. All right, so interesting enough, turning the tube screamer off actually didn't remove that much saturation. It didn't have that much of an effect on the low end either. Like, I actually feel like this feels just fine going into the front with no overdrive. So interestingly enough, like having no overdrive on out in front of it actually really lets those highs through more because it's not being compressed by being overdriven in the front of the amp. And that's kind of actually doing something that I don't really like to the top end. But luckily, we've got a 3-way sizzle switch as well as our presence control and our sharp control to control that top end. So yeah, as you can see, just by playing around with those controls, it almost like revoiced the amplifier. The mids are much more prominent now. Let's go ahead, let's try these different sizzle settings. All three noticeably different. I'm not sure what you guys are hearing on your end. Drop it down below in the comments. But over here, it kind of sounded like I was on the brightest and tightest one to start with. Flip the bright switch to the middle. That's a really fat, thick tone overall. Yeah, dude, super, super thick tone. Again, that's with no overdrive in front. We heard the tube screamer that is built in. So let's go ahead and try it with a couple external boosts real quick to see how it handles those. Here's the Boss SD1. Yeah, man, this thing has a really, really open mid-range compared to the one that I remember playing, or even the Darkest Nightmare. Like, the mids are just a lot more forward. They're still not bright and spiky like they would be on like a Marshall, but they are very much more prominent in some of the mid frequencies than the other amp that I played. So that was the Boss SD1 overdrive. Here's the Lichtlerm King in Yellow. All right, so the Lichtlerm did get it a little bit tighter, a little bit punchier, but overall, this is just not an amp that I think you're gonna be playing super fast, tight, technical rhythm stuff. So yeah, this amp for me is just a massive riff machine. That's what it's made for. So let's go ahead, let's start trying some other pickups. We're gonna go for a crunch tone, and then we're gonna do cool stuff after that. So for classic crunch tones, man, it definitely does a great version of that. It's not quite Marshall. It's definitely not quite like cranked old Fender. It's kind of got its own thing going on, but it definitely absolutely does a convincing crunch tone. So let's go back over to where man music is made in the high gain setting. Let's put the bright switch in the off position. Let's dial in a tone real quick, and then I'm going to show you 4 different pickups, all with different output levels and voicing, so you guys can see how it responds. guys, so I gotta say, I'm a little surprised because for as gainy and as compressed as this amp sounds, there were noticeable differences not only in the voicings, but in the output level of the pickups. Like with the Fishman just now, like the front end of the amp sounded like it was overloaded. Like there was a lot more saturation going on. But you know, as far as the voicings, like the EMG 81 sounded completely dead compared to the first two passive guitars. Let me know what you guys heard on your end down below in the comments, because in the room, it was a really interesting experience, actually. Drop C Hardcore. Dude, sometimes this thing's gain is conceiving through an act of violence is deceiving, because you'll dial it in and feel like you don't have that much gain at first, but then if you start digging in and really playing, like it's more than enough gain. Yeah, see, like that's plenty of gain right there. It does thicken the amp up if you do roll the gain up quite a bit. What am I doing? But yeah, almost every time I dial in a tone, I feel like I start playing and I have to back that gain back just a little bit because it ends up being hairier than I thought it was going to be. That's what she said. Real quick, let's cycle through the Sizzle switches because I haven't done much with them on this amp so far. Man, all three have good qualities. The one that I'm on now is like the gruntiest in the mids. It's the darkest, but there is still a top end sizzle going on. That middle one definitely had more top end than anything else, and it actually kind of opened the amp up pretty nicely with the lower tuning. Ooh, and it tightened the low end up too. I actually kind of like that the most. So that was with the bright switch off. What happens if we put it in the down position? Dude, the low end on this amp is addicting. If you're just playing big, fat palm mutes, this is probably one of the best that I've played to do it. Like, seriously, they're big and they're punchy. They don't feel sloppy. You know, they don't feel like bulbous like they do with a rectifier with no overdrive in front or something. They feel huge, but they still feel punchy. This amp is a lot of fun to play, and I'm finding that there are a lot of voicing tweaks that you can make between some of these controls. So, last but not least, let's try that baritone. Guys, so for the baritone, I definitely had to mix up my settings quite a bit compared to where I was in the higher tunings. The mids and the highs are cranked up quite a bit. I pulled the sharp back, and that was basically just to get the preamp of the amp to open up a little bit. This amp, I will say, is a little bit stuffy in those mids. The originals were like that. It very much reminds me of something like a Bogner Ubershaw in that way, where it's got plenty of mids. They're just not the super sharp, cutting, bitey upper mids that you're used to from a lot of amps. So it does give it a nasally effect sometimes, and in this lower tuning, it definitely was doing that. We had the built-in tube screamer engaged. One thing I do want to try real quick though is just basically hitting it with my little 7-band EQ that I like to stack with overdrive sometimes in order to tighten things up. do it for me today on the Driftwood Purple Nightmare Signature Edition. What did you guys think about this amplifier? What did you hear on your side that I did not hear here in the room? I'm really curious to see how this thing mics up and records. Does everything that I just say like translate? If you guys want to pick up one of these amplifiers for yourself, I'll drop a link down below to Driftwood's website. These are €3,099 as pictured. You guys can actually customize the look of them. You can add full MIDI implementation. You can change the knobs and stuff that goes along with the look, so yeah. But of course, those things will be an upcharge, but as it is here, €3,099, you can go on and pre-order one if you would like to. That will not be an affiliate link. I won't make any money off of that link, so in the sake of transparency, now you know. But I will make money if you guys decide to purchase my Quad Cortex capture pack of this amplifier, 15 different captures, 15 different tones, $15 different. You can find that down below at my Patreon, along with all of my other capture packs, and you guys buying that stuff greatly, greatly helps out the channel. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun. This amplifier was a lot of fun. You already know my thoughts on it. Time to leave yours down below. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed already, subscribe already. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time. You know what this wall is missing? Another amp. There we go.